Why do family stories keep returning? Why do they get concealed? In this collection, Stories and Lies, three poets explore the role of family in working out who we are and what we want to be in relation to the places we've come from. These very different voices, Pamela Johnson, Jennifer Grigg, Jane Kirwan, ask, can we ever get the full story?
Border. The wall was twice as tall as me. For years I traced my finger along grey mortar, searching for a chink. I couldn't say what changed that day I walked its length and found a wooden gate, unlocked. Yet there it was, a garden, long abandoned but familiar, with traces of a lawn, a shrubbery, deep borders. Inside the shed, a rotting door hanging on one rusted hinge, the smell of creosote. A shelf, a sheaf of papers listing all the flowers with the names of those who planted them. And on a line above a cobwebbed window, hung like ancient washing, brown paper bags filled with seeds collected from years of autumn dieback. In the long border, I'll pluck out weeds, sprinkle in some blood and bone, rake until the soil crumbles through my fingers.
Nightbloomingcereus. The plant in the stairwell is older than I am. It's pot-bound with roots poking out like thin white fingers feeling for something. Wild green fronds, more tentacle than flora, remind me of stranded jellyfish and their talent for stinging after death. One summer night before bed, 5 white buds as big as lemons and succulent as a baby's finger open, releasing their bitter, clear perfume into the dark. The scent rises up the stairwell and fills the bedrooms, calling moths to pollinate. In the dusky air, the smell is sweeter the farther I get from it, like people.
Uncertain. When she sees me scoop up her bawling baby, does she consider me competent? Am I competent when the cyclamen I gave her dies, and I take the remains, promise to rescue them, buy 7 more, and plant in the same pot? She says, "How did you save it?" How to save anything. The white, floating, translucent petals are clutching and tender. Is uncertain the same as incompetent? Am I fully engaged in competence, as if it were the cloth the magician flaps across the table, while underneath lost watches are found, dying plants revive, broken plates and babies reassemble in their exact and ideal place?
Laundry. Does she cling to the edge in case the bed betrays her as she fades, her secrets tucked under the mattress? I couldn't for shame. Never words, but a turn of her head. Anyone who knew is dead, or asleep in beds at addresses torn up, her past erased. Neighbours kept their distance, she's made her bed. All they'd ever seen were sheets, bleached, hung in the alley, billowing with nothing but air trapped in the weave. If we wait beside her in silence, will the story in her mind unfold? It's coming closer. The final fling of linen across her mattress.
Thou shalt not stand out. The coat was signal box red, matching sou'wester. She stood out, our gorgeous daughter. I took a photo. My mother said it was dangerous to praise. Don't flaunt her. Those matching wellies, snapping shut studs over a 3-year-old's tummy. Snapping her in that coat and her grandfather's trilby, as she stared up at my mother in sensible brown and cream tweed. Good Foxford tweed, now in a top cupboard, double wrapped in plastic against moths. Pockets unchecked. If unpacked, the used tissues or half-sucked humbug Wouldn't matter. Or if my mother came back from dust, bustled it on, that'd be weird, but not unexpected. But what if I'm tempted to wear it, have a photo taken, me in her tweed coat, and find I'm blotted out?
Breakfast with Grandma. She'd light her cigarette from the kitchen stove, holding her dark hair back from the flame, inhaling deeply. Who wants to live forever? She'd smoke while I sat at her yellow table in the sunflower kitchen. Tropicana and toast for me, black coffee for her. I was 9 years old. I loved to stand in her closet, where the long dresses hung at the back, beaded chiffon, taffeta, shantung. I'd sniff the perfume trails, the smoke clouds, the sharpness of sweat from dances with men who weren't my grandfather. When she died at 96, preserved by bourbon and nicotine, those dresses went to a charity shop. I kept a green enameled ashtray and a photo of her at the black and white ball. Uncle Bob turns 100. The night you ate an oyster in St. Louis, the tarmac melted, the plane was late, I wasn't there to stop you. The morning after you ate an oyster in St. Louis, it was 108 degrees and you had to stay in bed. I took the kids to Uncle Bob's birthday. My aged relatives thought it must be the heat affecting you, being English and all. I didn't tell them about the oyster. At the golf club dinner, we had steak. Who eats oysters in July in St. Louis? Whispered my mother. Aunt Marion said, to no one at all, so many blacks in New York are Obama's fault. I almost told her about the oyster. Uncle Bob is practically deaf. He smiled into his red and white silk handkerchief, adjusted his neatly pleated sleeves. One of the kids took her shoes off during dinner. She cut her foot so badly, we called the paramedics. The paramedics were tired. Fire alarms were going off all over, triggered by the hot air in attics. That night, you were still in bed. I needed 3 margaritas in the hotel bar. My sister looked at me. We're never coming here again.
The consolation of Russian proverbs. I've forgotten how long we've been stuck in this corridor that curves with no end in sight. I tell her she's free to pass, or we could leave together, round the bend, up the staircase to fresh air. Her face turns green. The walls flash neon pink, revealing her spike-eyed stare. She who wields long knife is not necessarily a chef. Hands on hips, finger wagging, every gesture demands justice. For what? No one died, was robbed or got sick. A slight, I think, was the seed she planted and tended. A passing quip over a cup of tea decades ago. But doesn't she know? Nobody travels to Tula with their own samovar. Her fury swells, filling her down to the smallest part of her foot, as if she had an extra organ pumping the stuff. It keeps growing, feeding on itself. So our world is shrunk, and I don't know the limits. What is hers? What is mine? Only that 2 bears can't live in the same lair.
Getting this story absolutely right. It's the way her fingers pinch into my arm. Painful, like the tale she's telling. The tragic characters, the doomed plot. Up and down the stairs, chat, chat, chat. This is who she is. The hopeless choices, lost lovers, a diamond chucked in Loch Con. Willie, Paddy, Reggie, Jimmy were desolate. We go in and out of the cottage. Chat, chat. She's finished up here in these woods, faced by her own wilderness. Has barely survived the pitfalls, the near misses. She sits and grabs my hand. Chat, chat. Mad Joe in the bonds, the fighting aunts, saucy brothers, as if she's still living it, the flight to the forest of the drunken uncles. She'll not apologise. She stirs the coals, says, I still feel I'm that young girl approaching. And yes, indeed, she'll watch out. Didn't she at last realise her children are the wolves? I have to eat you first.